Hello traders and investors, this is Steve with Trade Ideas, and today we're going to do a longer video to catch up to our new release, Trade Ideas Pro 4.0, and walk you through some of the basic steps that we give people in our one-on-one sessions. So this is a great way to look over the shoulder and see what's going on in the one-on-one sessions and use this as an easy way to get started on many of the new features and some of the good hacks I can show you to simplify what you're seeing and using. So let's get right into it. Right off the bat, what I show everybody is this toolbar is where everything happens. Always make sure you've got some green connection in here and a good ping time. You cannot log into two different machines using the same login. So if you ever see red up here, all you need to do is simply go to your account and reset connection like so. So first thing I do is I show people how to build an alert window from scratch. So we start with new alert, and keep in mind that to satisfy an alert we have to have two things. We have to have an event and we have to have our filters satisfied. The event can be something as a new high, new low, crossed above, crossed below, what have you. And notice quickly on the left hand side here we have some file folders with some pre-configured strategies, bullish files in this folder, bearish strategies in this folder, and this recent settings is a great fail-safe folder for if you have misplaced something you were working on or forgot what you named it or whatnot. Anything that you've been working on recently is going to be in here, so don't fret, it's not lost. It's probably in the recent settings folder. So we're going to take a trip across the tabs here from left to right, and we're going to start with the search bar. And as you can see, since 2003, Trade Ideas has developed a huge pile of alerts and filters, and so much so that it's very difficult to go in here and just try and find alphabetically always what it is you're looking for. So we like to have people use the search terms here, and we use keywords such as gap. So we'll use gap for an example here, and you can see this returned 4 different alerts and 4 different filters. So the first thing I want to call your attention to is the tremendous amount of help that is available to you to understand what exactly it is you're seeing. If we were to highlight one of these alerts here, false gap up retracement, well, let's go ahead and just click the help button and find out exactly what that is all about. And as you can see, it takes you right to the proper page and gives you a great explanation. And this is the same for every alert and every filter that we have. Notice here we have a couple of filters. One is expressed in dollar signs, one is expressed in percent. Let's go ahead and add this gap percent filter for the sake of building this alert, and we'll just highlight and click add filter. And you see it takes us directly to the filters page now. We did skip over the alerts, and I'm going to uncheck new low. You can have them both checked, new highs and new lows, but for the sake of segmenting a window with just new highs, I'm going to suppress new low and just leave new highs checked. So we're going to talk a little bit about the filters here, and this is the way it comes to you in a default mode. The first thing you can do is change the price level. I prefer to use this parameter. Minimum stocks are on the left, minimum values are on the left, maximum values are on the right. The price of the stock here is a minimum value of 5 and a maximum value of 200. The next significant filter is your daily average volume. Now the daily average volume comes as a default here at 100,000. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 300,000. And at the same time I'm going to show you the second one of our features, which is very important to use for your help. It is the show me icon, and by clicking the show me icon it takes the value that was plugged in there, 300,000, and gives me a context of how it's going to be used. And it's showing me show me stocks where the daily volume is at least 300,000 shares a day, and that's exactly what I want, so we'll leave that as is. The next filter we have here is change from the close, and you can see one is expressed in dollar signs and one is expressed in percent. If we wanted to only filter out stocks that were going to be up on the day, an easy way to do that would be to put a value of 1 cent here in the minimum column in change from the close. And let's just check our work here real quick. The stocks were up at least 1 cent from previous close. That's exactly what we want. So by doing that, we're keeping any negative stocks on the day, net change down on the day, out of this filter set. And keep in mind, the filter set here is all or none. All of these filters, that when you add a value in here, they all have to be satisfied or an alert will not generate. Let's talk a little bit about relative volume, because this is a key one. And it's easy to understand if it's explained properly, so I'm going to attempt that here. The beauty of Trade Ideas is it can monitor over 8,000 stocks in the U.S. exchanges, and it knows what the baselines are for all of those stocks throughout the day, different time frames, different ranges, different periods. The server side stores all that information, and it's a tremendous amount of information. And one of the things it can do is figure out what a run rate of volume should be for a particular stock. Let's use an example. Stock XYZ at noon on East Coast time normally does 400,000 shares a day by noon. That's the average run rate baseline that Trade Ideas recognizes. Well, let's say stock XYZ is actually doing 800,000 shares by noon East Coast time. Well, that would be expressed as a value of 2 to 1 relative volume. Now, this is a great way to keep the noise out if you're looking for unusual type of volume moves. Occasionally you can see stocks doing 3 times the normal volume, but 2 is a pretty good filter to keep out the unwanted noise of average volume and only show you what you want to see in terms of double the amount of normal volume for that time of day. All right, let's talk a little bit about position in range. There's actually 2 keywords here I want to focus on. Let's start with range. Right now we're dealing with a daily range here, and we're going to put a value in there for position in daily range. But our ranges can be anything from 5-minute, 10-minute, 30, 60-minute, our 1-day range here, maybe a 20-day range, or even a 52-week range or a lifetime range. So the way in which we define that is the position, and the position is a percentile. So let's say, for instance, I put a 90 in here. What I'm saying is only show me stocks that are in the position of today's range that are 10% from their highs. So 90th percentile and above. Everything else below is not going to be coming through. We're filtering those out. So in other words, I only want to see stocks that are near their highs. I could even put a value of 99 in there if I wanted to see a stock that's about ready to go to highs. So for now, let's just put a value of 50 in there, which means we're going to look for positions in ranges for today's range that are on the upper half of their daily range. Now, gap percentage is very easy to understand. There is a little bit of a quirk, and I'm going to explain that to you. Let's say we want to see stocks that are gapping up 1/2 of 1%. Well, that's pretty simple. We would put a minimum value of 0.5%, 0.5. We'll check our work. Open was at least 0.5 above the previous close. Perfect. Well, that's what we're looking for. But this is a way of thinking in different terms. We have to explain to the servers exactly what we want to do if we wanted to see stocks that are gapping down 0.5 point. You would probably think that we just put a value of negative 0.5 in there, but you'll see when you check your work, we've got some confusion. And when you see a result like this, the system is not really sure what it is you're trying to convey. So what I want you to do is think of this particular alert feature of trying to set a negative 0.5% gap or lower. Look at this like a linear time number line. You've got your negative numbers on the left, 0, and then your positive numbers on the right if we were doing a timeline. Well, to suppress anything above a negative 0.5% gap down, we actually have to express it in the maximum column, and we do it with negative 0.5. So we don't want to see anything above the number line that is less than negative 5. And if we check 0.5, excuse me, if we check our work here, the open was at least 0.5 below the previous close. Well, that's what we're looking for. So I just wanted to quickly highlight to you the way in which you express negative values on a gap. Exchanges is the next tab, and this is the default setting, making sure that we are pulling data from all the U.S. exchanges. There's really not much to do here. If you wanted to suppress something, you're welcome to, or maybe you wanted to add Toronto Stock Exchange, you could do that as well. But I prefer to just leave this as is. Now, for a moment, let's just focus on a different way of looking at this data. If we only wanted to look at stocks that are in our watch list, let's say we have a list of 50 or even 100 stocks that we like to keep an eye on and keep tabs on throughout the day, we can use this alert that we're configuring to only follow those specific stock symbols. And the way in which you do that is you can create your own list here, give it a title, and once you title it, you can start typing in all of your stock symbols. Once you've got your stock symbols in the list, you simply choose from this button over here, and you'll notice there are many pre-configured sectors with stock symbols in there that you can use for your own benefit, or if you have created your own custom alert, your own custom watch list, you would find that watch list in here and select it. Well, let's say that this one here, watch list, is the one that we're going to use. And the way in which we're going to direct the system to only focus on those watch list stocks and not the 8,000 securities out there in the U.S. exchanges, we select the list, and then we have to follow it up with this drop-down instruction only from the following lists. So now, instead of pulling from all the exchanges, we have created a watch list, and we're only focusing this particular alert that we're building on our stock symbols in the watch list. Well, I'm going to uncheck that because that's not what I want, and we'll put that back on all symbols. Columns is a very simple way to edit your columns. If I want to save real estate on my screen, I could take things like description and pull that out of there. And then again, I did add that gap percentage. Even though I didn't add a value in there, I would still like to see exactly what's popping up on those columns when the alerts come in. So I'll go ahead and add that as well. And then the summary page is our final step. It's where you can go ahead and name your alert. It shows us what our event is. Remember, an alert needs an event, and a new high is going to be our event. And these are our stock filters, price levels, volume levels, and things like that. One thing I did forget to mention, I'm going to go back to the first page here. If you open up your configuration window and it doesn't look like mine, there's more than likely a button down here that is saying advanced. What you need to do is click that button once and then make sure you check this, and then forever going forward you will have the advanced configuration screen. So very important there as well. So back to our summary, we double check our work and it looks like everything we've got is how we want it. So let's go ahead and launch that window. Okay, right off the bat we have a real-time alert popping out, EOG, and if you're using a Trade Ideas charts, and you can link those, you can double click and you can have a quick glimpse at what the chart looks like. Okay, a couple of hacks here. First off, these column headers can be a little bit confusing to some people. Rather than hovering your mouse over each one, there is an easier way to read those. Let's go ahead and show you that. As we do with every alert, we right click in the alert window, and the second one down is, the properties. We're going to go to properties and select text headers, and now you can see it's a much easier way to read this information coming at you. Notice we just had another alert come in, the same stock making another new high. Let's say for the moment that we want to look this morning and see what has been generated prior to these real-time alerts coming out. Well, you can see it's checked to real time, and that's the default, and as an alert comes through it will show up in real time. But if we click today, we can actually go back all the way to the beginning of today, which is 6:30 Pacific Coast time, and see exactly what is being spit out on these alerts, and use those alerts to kind of get a visual as to see if this is exactly what it is we're expecting to see as we created this alert. And so you can go back and visually kind of check your work and see if it's what you're looking for. You can go back yesterday or even longer time frames, however you want to define it. So we'll go back to real time here, and that is our basic alert. Now let's put that aside for a second. The other tool that Trade Ideas uses is what's called a top list. And a top list is very similar, except it's missing one component. And let me show you that. If we go to configure this, you'll notice it goes right into filters. There is no alerts tab. So a top list is not looking for an event. It's basically looking for all the stocks that satisfy the filter requirements that you have set. And so that's what we've got to look at here. And this one is something you may have seen on the webinars that Dan Merkin does. It's called Trend Change Lubricant. It is essentially looking for stocks that are in their lower 52-week range, but in their trailing 20-day range, starting to make some highs. And this is an interesting way to try and catch some trend changes for some good low risk, high reward type entries. I'm going to highlight a couple other things here. Every of these columns is sortable, Now right now I have this one sorted on short float, and anything that is a high short float is going to come up to the top. We've got values here from 17, 18 up to 34% short the float. So I can quickly go through here and take a look at some of these charts on a quick basis. I've double clicked the symbol, and now I'm just using the arrow key and going down and quickly taking a look. And if I see something that I like, it's more than likely going to have a high short float because that's how I've sorted it. Well, let's say I want to sort it on relative volume like we spoke of earlier. Well, you can see here the highest relative volume, as I mentioned, is barely above 3.7. So these stocks up here at the high end are doing very high relative volume for their normal baseline. So something must be going on there. And that's another way to look at it. Maybe we want to sort on the actual volume done today. Well, it looks like WIN has already done 114% of its average daily volume. So there's something going on there for sure. Not to mention it does have a short float of 26. Well, let's take a look at how that looks. Yeah, and it's having a pretty good day, it looks like, on some good volume bars as well. All right, so that's that for the trend change. Top list, all top lists are going to work in that fashion. I'm going to put this back. I'm going to go ahead and close this window since this was just created for demonstration purposes. The third tool in which we use here is the multi-strategy window. And as you can see, the multi-strategy window has an M and has some different colorations in here. Well, what's going on is essentially this is an alert window with 6 different alerts put together, and that's the name multi-strategy. So if I right click on it, you'll notice I don't have a configuration. I still have to select which strategy I want to configure and work on, or for that matter, even add a new strategy on top of it. And then once you've done that, you can color code these strategies based on directional movement or volume or however you want to do it to customize it. But this is a great way to save real estate and use the best efficiency on your desktop. All right, this is an alert that was actually created by our moderator in the live trading room named Barry. And let's talk about how we use the live trading room. Over here on the left side is our channel bar, and I'm actually going to start at the very bottom because this is how you would access the live trading room. You would just click into this channel here and create a free account. You do not have to be a Trade Ideas customer to create a free user account to come on in and see what's going on. We have a very unique community with over 210 people in there using Trade Ideas and following along as Barry shares his desktop and his trading strategies with you in real time. It's a great place to come and learn, share, and collaborate. And speaking of collaborate, we're going to talk about that now. Let's say for purposes that you like to share some strategies with people. Well, one of the ways we do that is we use the cloud. And if somebody wanted to borrow and use this trend change top list, it's a simple right click, save to cloud. You see it's loaded there into the cloud. And I'm going to click save and share. Save and share not only saves it to my cloud, but allows me to copy the code string to my clipboard. Now, when it's in my clipboard, I can drop it into an email or a chat window or an instant message or what have you. And anybody with Trade Ideas Pro can receive that cloud link and load it from their end. So essentially they would just do file, load, trend change lubricant right there at the top, and they would load that window. And as you see, I've just basically loaded that duplicate window. So using the cloud is a great way to save your own configurations and share them as well. So using that feature is a great way to take advantage of the channel bar that we have here. Let's visit a couple channels real quickly. Pre-market is a very popular one, and you'll see when I double click on that, I lose my default layout and I am taken to the channel layout here, the channel layout for pre-market. This is a static channel. I cannot make changes and expect them to stay when I come back to the channel, but what I can do is borrow any of these pre-configured windows and save that to the cloud and bring it down for my own personal use. And that way I can configure it. So here's how we would do that. Let's say I want to put these up gappers, which again is a top list, and it's sorted by the percentage gap up. And it's showing us, just for example, SUNE is gapped up 39% today. Well, let's double click that, and yes, it looks like it has. I've got two dailies on here. Okay, so we're going to right click. We are going to save and share to cloud. It's been loaded in there. I'm going to just simply save it. Now I'm going to go back to my default layout. The easiest way to do that is File, Load Layout, and Default Layout. And now we are ready to bring down from the cloud what we just borrowed from the channel bar. So it's a File, Load, and there it is right at the top. Time stamped right at the top, Load. Now we have the upgappers in our default configuration. And if I want to try and change some things around, like get rid of some of the columns, I can do that. Let's get rid of company name. And we now have a more streamlined window that we can use and save in our default layout. Some other channels to take note of. Social media, great channel. Again, Trade Ideas understands what the baseline is for all metrics, including social mentions. So we monitor the feed of stock twits, and we can see if a stock is being mentioned much more than normal above its baseline. And once again, that's a way in which you can determine where there's smoke, there might be fire, whether it's volume or the crowdsourcing speaking way over the average of what it would normally do. It can bring some interesting stocks to your attention that way. So I wanted to highlight that as well. Another great channel is the Surge channel. This will look for stocks that are doing unusual volume in the last few minutes, some explosive type stuff to try and catch it before even maybe news might come out, which often happens. And once again, you can borrow any of these windows and save them to the cloud and bring them back to your desktop. The final channel that I do want to talk about here is sectors. And sectors is a great way to look at the market in the morning from a top-down approach. This window here is going to show us the analysis of a heat map, what sectors are doing well, which looks like the disk drive sectors, security broker dealers, natural gas is doing well, China's doing well. And on the downside, we've got the airline index getting hit and the gold's getting hit today pretty good. So I think it's very important as a trader to always understand where you are in relation to the heat map of different sectors, because that's just another way of getting as much information as you can to make the best decision as possible as a trader. So we've talked about the channel bar, we have talked about the live trading room, we've talked about alerts, top lists, multi-strategies. Let's go back to our default layout and talk a little bit about these charts. I want to show you a couple of things quickly. I have my charts linked, and all of your charts should be linked as well. If they're not, you just select properties and symbol linking. So every time I change a stock symbol, these two charts are going to change. My time frame is a daily and a 5-minute over here. But you'll notice I also have a static chart that does not change, just to keep an eye on the SPY here. And to keep that static and not changing with everything, just make sure symbol linking is not checked. And so it will always be the way you want it. You can change the themes. It comes as a white background as a default. I have changed it to black. That's just a preference. So we'll change that back. And here is a great one that I think is needs to be understood by everybody. To zoom in and zoom out, what you need to do is hold down the control key and then the mouse wheel. And that's going to allow you to zoom in and zoom out. If you don't hold down the control key, it's just going to go backwards in time, and that doesn't really help the chartist. So I wanted to show you that feature as well. All right. So that's pretty much it for a basic how to get started on Trade Ideas Pro. As always, you can email info@trade-ideas.com with any questions or recommendations you might have, and those emails will be sent to the correct person. And that's all I have for you today. We're very excited about the artificial intelligence. We'll save more of that for another day. And back testing, we can save that for another day as well. But for now, this is just a great getting started tutorial on how to use Trade Ideas Pro 4.0. All right, have a good day and happy trading.